This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom.
This is Milestones to Millionaire Podcast number 119, Opening a Franchise. This episode is sponsored by All Global Circle. You have valuable knowledge and can always use a little extra money. The All Global Circle community is set up to provide a clear, easy, and efficient means of communication between the pharmaceutical industry, the research industry, and those professionals who are using new developments and end products on an ongoing daily basis. If All Global Circle can't get you a survey to take within 90 days, they'll pay you a loyalty bonus just for logging in and checking a couple of times per month. By signing up at whitecoatinvestor.com/global, you'll get an extra $50 just for being a member of the WCI community. All right. Welcome back to the podcast. I've been looking forward to talking to you. I spent the last 2 days in the ER, and it was fun. Took care of a lot of great patients. Usual hassles. You know, one of the CT scanners was down, so we ended up being on divert for ambulances, which in some ways is a bad thing. We see fewer patients and obviously bring in less revenue when that happens. In some ways, it's a good thing. My partner let me go early, and I got 8 runs in with my wife at Solitude yesterday. You know, one of the great things living at the base of the Wasatch is that I don't have to jump on a plane to go skiing. I don't even really have to drive very far to go skiing. If I can work a day shift and still get 8 runs in, that's an awfully cool thing to be able to do. So love living here in the Wasatch. We are having a blockbuster snow year. I think it's actually the record. I don't think in recorded history we've ever had more snow in Utah, which is fantastic because we have been in a multi-year drought. My favorite lake, Lake Powell's down like 180 feet. It's like 22% full, this reservoir of the Colorado River. And so this will go a long way to helping with that, as well as the Great Salt Lake, which is also having some issues. So hopefully the snow comes down slowly out of the mountains and doesn't flood out too many people. But at this point, I'm like, any form of precipitation in any amount at any time, we'll take it. So it's going to be a great year for rivers, great year for lakes. It's been a great year for skiing. We love it. All right. Today, we got a really cool interview you guys are going to enjoy. But after that, stick around. I'm going to talk a little bit about financial advisors. And that's an important topic. I talked about it a lot when I first started the blog back in 2011. I feel like I don't talk about it as much these days. But we're going to hit it today for those of you on the podcast. You know, these Milestones podcasts, we don't even do show notes for. This is just for you. It doesn't go on the blog. You know, it's like a special little secret bit of information for you, kind of like the monthly newsletters. You know, those don't go on the blog either. If you're not subscribed, you don't get them. If you want to subscribe, it's easy to do. It's totally free. Just go to whitecoatinvestor.com, go under the WCI Plus tab, and you'll see a newsletter sign up. You can sign up there for those newsletters. And obviously, you know how to find these podcasts. But let's get into our interview here. Our guests today on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast are Alex and Amanda. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Alex is an orthopedist. Amanda is a nurse anesthetist. And that is cool and all. But the milestone they're coming on for is even cooler. Tell us what milestone we're celebrating today.
I'll let my wife take the lead since she is kind of spearheading this endeavor for us.
So we bought and started our first franchise.
That's pretty exciting. And the fact that you're using first franchise tells me you have plans to do more.
Yes.
If it works out.
Okay. So Amanda, tell us about the franchise. What have you bought? What do you own? What's this business?
So we bought a gutter company, or the territory rights to open an already established gutter company in Louisville, Kentucky, where we live.
You're talking about the gutters that you hang on the edge of your roof, those gutters.
Very important, as I've now discovered.
Cool. So tell us about the process. What did this take to become a franchisee? I guess you're a franchisee, right? What did this take to do?
Yeah, so we actually heard from your podcast. You had, I guess, a franchise broker. I don't know if that's a formal term for it on your podcast. And so we kind of just looked into it and emailed and reached out to him and got in contact with him. And then he, connected us with probably one of his associates and presented us with, a bunch of different franchises that they were trying to kind of expand, anywhere from, this company that would paint the lines in parking lots to like a donut food truck to
Doggy
Roto-Rooter,
daycare.
doggy daycares, like kind of just every little thing. And they give you kind of financials or just like a general financial overview of each, and just you kind of pick a couple that you're more interested in, then you take the next step and go from there, and just kind of meet with more people and get deeper and deeper into a couple more, and then just kind of eliminate as you get deeper into the process and pick which ones you like the most. And we ended up on gutters.
And I think going about it that way with the broker was really nice. If you just try to pick an individual franchise, that franchise is going to try to sell you their business. If you go through a broker, I mean, like a real estate, they're trying to sell you a house, but not necessarily each one particular house. So it's kind of nice that I felt like we had a better chance of an impartial, opinion. And I mean, he's obviously incentivized to sell us something, but I felt like we might get a better match that way.
All right. Well, I've got two why questions. All right. And the first one is, why did you want to open a franchise in the first place? I mean, you're an orthopedist. She is a nurse anesthetist. You guys have a good income, right? There's no doubt that you have the capability to earn a lot of money by trading time for money. Why did you decide to open a franchise?
So, I mean, I think we're both, we like to pretend that we're business savvy as we kind of navigate our early attendinghood. I'm out 4.5 years. She's not even out a full year. And so, I went into private practice, and we've got, real estate that we own, and MRI, PT, all that kind of stuff. And I've enjoyed that aspect of it. I do some consulting work on the side. And as I've done that, I've been more interested in business ownership. And my wife actually came to our relationship having partial ownership of 2 houses and was in like real estate. So we were always going to do something, just because we like kind of the next thing. We like staying involved in new challenges. And we kind of thought it would be real estate. And then when we kind of brought this idea to each other about the franchise, we didn't know where it was going to go, but here we are with one, and we're hoping it goes well.
Okay. Second question. And I don't know, maybe this one's better for you, Amanda. Why gutters instead of doggy daycare or something else? What was it about this gutter franchise that you liked?
I think mostly off the bat right away, we just felt really supported by that company. We literally don't know anything about business in terms of like franchising. Like we have a little bit of knowledge, but we're pretty green going in, and they just seem like they had the most support in terms of, they basically gave you the tools and they gave you the design and layout and said, if you just follow this plan or what we've seen with other franchises that we've already done across the country, like you should be successful, and like we'll help you through that. And so that's kind of really what I needed. There was a couple other franchises that were just like, buy this and do that and then you'll be good. And I'm just like, I'm gonna need a little more than that. Like I don't know what I'm doing.
So what are you doing?
Starting
Are
cost.
you going out and looking at houses and putting gutters up on houses? Or what are you actually doing in the franchise?
So I hired a general manager. He is a younger guy, like really hungry. That's kind of what I was looking for, is someone that wanted to build something with us. So that was like really important. And they kept telling us, there's semi-absentee models in other franchises that they have. So like, I went to training a few weeks ago in New York, and another nurse anesthetist had bought a franchise in Illinois. And, other physicians had these. So they did a semi-absentee model. So I hired a GM to kind of help me. And we've been working together, just, getting licensing and getting trucks wrapped and just little things here and there. And now he's kind of just out in the field and doing that. I went to training, so I learned how to do it and install gutters. When I picked up a hacksaw to try to cut one of the gutters, everyone kind of looked at me like, I was like, what? I got to know how to do this, like I'm not just sit here and watch. And so I don't know, I've just kind of been helping now with what he needs, because he's kind of just taken this into his own hands, which has been awesome. And like, really, we couldn't do it any other way with our jobs.
So what is keeping him from just doing it all himself? He just didn't have the cash, and you were able to bring the cash to bear? Or does he also lack some of the business expertise that you've picked up along the way?
I mean, I think a little bit of both. He's fresh out of college. He's in the military, and he worked with aircraft sheet metal. So he's very familiar. Like, that's what gutters are, is sheet metal. So he did that with aircrafts. And so he had a little bit of knowledge, at least in sheet metal, and just he's more of a blue collar, kind of hands on, really good with his hands. And I really respected the trades more and more as I get into this. It's like, yeah, anesthesia school was hard and orthopedics training was very hard, but like numbers and angles and measurements and, easy. And I'm like, this is like, I feel like a little bit overwhelming for like how my brain works. And I'm like, I really respect people that can do this. And so he had that, that kind of thought process and was able to just kind of understand how tools work. And, I have a little bit of that. Like, my dad taught me how to tile bathrooms and do stuff with my rental properties, but it's still like a lot.
Let's talk about the numbers a little bit. Can you tell us what you bought it for, how much that you used cash, how much you used debt, what kind of cash flow you're seeing back from it? Tell us what your experience has been financially with this business.
So I'm pretty debt adverse. So when we decided to do this, we decided that we weren't going to go into debt for this, because if it goes under, I didn't want to have to write a check or worry about it. So the initial purchase was for the territories. So Louisville's made up of 3 territories in their model, and we bought 2 of them with the right to buy the third one at the end of this year if we want to. So that was $90,000 to buy those 2 territories. Then we hired the general manager at the beginning of the year, even though we didn't open until about 2 weeks ago. But so we had to pay his salary. We also had to buy a box truck, so that's about $70,000. We had to buy gutter machines, about $15,000. We had to buy a sales truck or sales car and to get it wrapped, and that's about $15,000. So all in, it's a little, with salaries that we've currently paid, it's a little over $200,000.
And no cash flow back out of it yet, it sounds like, since you just opened a couple of weeks ago. But what do you expect out of your first year and maybe second year as far as profit that's coming to you for your investment?
Profit first year. So they've told us like it's the race to 3 trucks. So we have 1 truck right now, and as you scale, you need 3 trucks to actually see like decent money. And so if we're able to do that by the end of the year, they predict like 40 to 50,000. And now that's considering an $80,000 salary of our general manager. So if we didn't have him, like, we'd see it a lot quicker. But then I think once you're kind of over your first year, it scales pretty quickly.
Yeah. So the goal would be, somewhere in their projections for not like their lowest producing franchise, but also not their highest, somewhere in the middle of, $250,000, $300,000 profit to us.
Eventually.
That's what success would look like to you. That would cause you to maybe do another one of these in a few years, even in a different field or something?
Yeah, probably a different field. Yes.
Yeah.
What would failure look like? How would you know to pull the plug? And when would you pull the plug if this wasn't making, some certain amount of money?
That's a good question. I don't think a hard number. Like, we've already invested probably $250,000 into this. And so, like you said, we haven't taken out loans for it, and it's not going to be life altering for us if we lose this money. But I don't know. We haven't really talked about that yet. We're kind of just waiting to see.
I think we definitely want to get through the summer.
Deal with. We'll see, I guess.
I know.
Yeah. This is not the busy time for gutters, but we've already got, we have a similar amount of estimates right now as we had for opening day, and we had marketing going on for about 6 weeks at that point. So that's at least a good sign. And then watching those turn in, those estimates turn into leads and jobs. That's where we're still trying to figure out, hey, where are we? It's a little scary right now, and we really don't know where we are. It's just so early on. But I think we at least want to get through the summer, because that should be kind of the busier time, and see where things look. There does seem to be a very good market of a better designed, well organized gutter company.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think they've said it's hard the hardest part is from 1 to 2 trucks. And so if we're able to get from 1 to 2, which would kind of be around summertime when that decision would kind of be made, if we're scaling appropriately, then I think from there, like we'd be a little bit more in the clear, if you will, in terms of it's a lot easier once you get that second truck because that's showing progress and growth and the appropriate revenue stream.
Yeah, very cool. All right. So there's somebody out there that's, maybe they're just out of residency, maybe they're halfway through their career and they want to do something similar. What advice do you have for them?
I would say cash flow it. I mean, we make enough money like to begin with, and we didn't do this until like we were pretty much debt free. We have a little bit still with just a piece of land that we bought to build a house on someday, but I mean, fresh out of residency, we wouldn't have even like entertained this idea because you still had debt. I was still in school. Like, I think you don't really know, like you have to just take a risk. So like you have to be comfortable with losing $250,000 potentially. Like that was our mindset. And coming out of residency, that would have been way too stressful. Where now it's kind of like, well, we can still do what we want to do. And it's not going to be that life altering. It's going to sting a little bit, but it's not going to be that life altering. So I would definitely say for fresh out of residency, like just pay down your debts. And then it makes this whole process a little bit more fun because it's not as stressful if this is all you're kind of worrying about.
Come out of training, like you say, live like a resident as best you can, pay down the debt and learn your craft. You still don't know your craft coming out of residency. You got to learn how medicine is going to be in your hands. And once you get to a place where you're comfortable in your job, you're comfortable in your own shoes, then if you're, you like to tinker and you like the next challenge, sometimes you just have to take that plunge. You have to take that leap of faith and gamble on yourself.
Awesome. Well, Amanda and Alex, thank you so much for being willing to come on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast and for sharing your experience and your wisdom and hopefully inspiring somebody else to maybe take the next step in their financial journey. So thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Glad you enjoyed that interview. I thought it was pretty fun too. I love getting new milestones we've never had before. Some of the feedback we got in our survey this year was, the milestones are all the same. Well, they're not all the same. They're what you guys call in with. So if you've got a unique milestone, apply whitecoatinvestor.com/milestone. What I love about this is that these two, number one, got their financial ducks in a row so that they could afford to take some business risk in their life. And number two, they just went and did it. Nobody was going to tell them they couldn't. And because of that, I think they're going to be successful. Maybe not as fast as they hope to be. Maybe it takes them till fall to get their second or their third truck or whatever, instead of getting it done this summer. But I'll be surprised if those two aren't very, very successful and wealthy. And we'll talk to them again in 5 or 6 years and they'll have estate tax problems probably. All right, let's talk about financial advisors. There are 3 issues with financial advisors when it comes to interacting with white coat investors. And it's unfortunate because I think something like 80% of doctors and other high-income professionals out there want and probably need to use a good financial advisor. But there's 3 problems. The first one is that financial advisors are bad. Okay, they're calling themselves financial advisors, but they aren't actually financial advisors. They're salespeople in disguise most of the time, or they're ignorant. They just don't understand finance. It's not that they're deliberately trying to hurt you. Some of them are, but it's simply that they don't understand all the ins and outs. They don't understand not only the specific doctor-specific stuff, but they don't understand the basics of finance. I can't believe how many financial advisors I run into that think they can pick stocks well enough to beat the market, or that are using actively managed mutual funds. The data on this stuff's very clear, number one. Number two, you can lower your risk as a financial advisor by using index funds. You've got a certain amount of fiduciary risk there if you're trying to beat the market. And so while there's plenty of uninformed investors out there that think the role of a financial advisor is to beat the market, it's not actually what you should be doing. You need to be talking them out of that if you're a financial advisor. So that's problem number one, is that most financial advisors just suck. They don't give good advice. So the most important thing from a financial advisor is that you get good advice. Problem number 2 is that financial advisors charge too much. And sometimes that's due to the way they're paid. Some are paid on commissions, which usually means you're getting bad advice because it's so conflicted, even a good person can't overcome it. But the second most common method is an asset under management fee, which is fine. if you have less than $1 million. If you have more than $1 million, you got $5 million, paying 1% of your assets under management is a ridiculous ripoff. If you're paying your financial advisor 50 grand a year, I can find you somebody that's going to charge you, 25% as much or less. That's going to give you probably better advice. So that's the second problem, is people just paying too much for financial advice. And I can't blame the advisors, right? They're running a business like anybody else. You charge what the market will bear, but you're the market. So don't bear too much. If you can get somebody that's going to do great investment management for you for $8,000 a year, why would you pay them $25,000 a year? You shouldn't. Same thing with the financial planning side. And often you're better off splitting those two things up. If you're paying more than a few $1,000s for a financial plan, you're probably paying too much. Typically, the right price for financial advice is a 4-figure amount per year. It's going to be more than $1,000, right? They're not going to be able to stay in business if they're not charging you at least that. It probably ought to be less than $10,000, unless you're in a particularly complicated situation or getting a particularly high, volume of service from them. That's probably about the most you ought to be looking to pay. Certainly by the time you're in the $20, $25, $30, $40, $50,000 range, you're paying too much. And a lot of people are doing that ignorantly because their portfolio grew over time and they just kept paying 1% of assets under management every year. So problem number 1 is bad advice. Problem number 2 is paying too much, even for good advice. And problem number 3 is that white coat investors want everything in one person. And there are very few financial advisors that offer every service you need. For example, you may need a financial planner to help you draft up your financial plan, help you even create a budget, maybe help you manage student loans. And there's specialists in that as well. So you've heard of student loan advice that we talk about on here all the time, studentloanadvice.com, right? It's practically a specialty in and of itself. But beyond financial planning, you probably also want someone that's going to be an investment manager. They're going to manage your assets. And those are actually two separate things. Financial planning and asset management, not the same thing. Often people try to do both of those. And what usually happens is they give short shrift to financial planning. For some dumb reason, people are willing to pay more for investment management than they are for financial planning, even though the financial planning is probably more valuable. But people also want advice on their taxes and maybe tax preparation as well. And they're like, I can't get that from my financial planner too. No, you can't. Most of the time you can't. You're going to need somebody else. And then, for example, if they own a practice, maybe they want, a 401k or other retirement plan for the practice. Well, that's another type of financial advisor. It's not the same people doing all these things. So that's the other big disconnect, is you got to know what services you actually want and hire somebody that's actually good at those services. And it may be that you need 2, 3, 4 different people to help you. And all of them want to be paid. Even if you're just paying for tax preparation, by the time you have a complicated return, if you're filing in multiple states or you got a bunch of K1s or something, you're doing a corporate return as well, you're going to be paying thousands just for tax preparation. That doesn't even really include much tax advice. And then you add on, $5,000 or $10,000 for investment management, maybe a few thousand for financial planning, right? Now you're going to pay somebody for your practice retirement plan. You could spend quite a bit of money on financial advice. So you can obviously see here that this is expensive stuff. We just got done doing our survey of white coat investors out there, and we know most of you are making somewhere in the, your household income's only $250,000 to $500,000, somewhere in that range. So if you're paying $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 for financial services every year, that's a huge chunk of your income. That's a huge chunk you're spending. Most of you are actually spending less than $200,000 a year. So this could be like an eighth of your spending if you've got all those people. So you can see the impetus to actually become financially literate. The more financially literate you are, the less you have to pay to other people to do these things for you. It's entirely possible for you to be your own financial planner. It is entirely possible for you to be your own investment manager. I have done both of these for myself my entire career. It is not undoable. Many white coat investors out there are doing it. You can file your own taxes and do your own tax strategizing. I did my own taxes for many, many years, until like a couple of years ago when I just couldn't figure out which states I had to file in for all my K1s. And you probably got your limit too. And when your return gets so complicated, you'll decide to hire somebody else for it, and that's okay. But realize that there's, some money you can save there. Plus, you'll learn a lot about your taxes. If you are self-employed, you don't have any employees, you can even, handle your own retirement accounts. Opening up a solo 401k, not that hard. Even if you add on a personal defined benefit plan, still a do-it-yourself project until you have employees. At that point, you really do need to hire a professional to assist with that. But here's the deal, right? Financial advisors, it's a little bit of a love-hate relationship, right? Sometimes you do need them, but there's plenty of them out there who are just ripping you off, giving bad advice, charging too much for advice. So the more you learn how to do yourself, the better, whether you work with an advisor or whether you don't. The financial advisors on our recommended list, which you can check out, and I highly recommend you do, whitecodeinvestor.com, go to the recommended tab, go down to financial advisors, or just go directly to whitecodeinvestor.com/financial-advisors. And you can see that list of people we recommend. But here's the deal, right? Even those people are going to charge you money. And they give good advice, and they charge a fair price, or we don't put them on the list. But if you can do it yourself, you can save a lot of that. Just make sure you're doing it well yourself. You're far better off paying somebody thousands of dollars a year and having it done right than not doing it right. So if there's any doubt on your ability to do it, get some help. And there's people on there that offer all kinds of different services. Some of them are trying to help you be a do-it-yourselfer. Some, kind of want to do it all. They want to be a full service person. That's the kind of client they're looking for. So you need to make sure you get a good match there. All right. Hope that's helpful to you. Hope you're enjoying these new kind of longer Milestones podcasts. Send us some feedback, whether you like them, whether you don't like them. We can cut them back to, just the interview like they were before. But I keep getting lots of people asking, hey, we need more basics on the podcast. We need more, specific topics on the podcast. So I'm trying to add some of those in to the Milestone podcasts and hope you enjoy those. The sponsor for this episode is All Global Circle. You have valuable knowledge and can always use a little extra money. The All Global Circle community is set up to provide a clear, easy, and efficient means of communication between the pharmaceutical industry, the research industry, and those professionals who are using new developments and end products on an ongoing daily basis. If All Global Circle can't get you a survey to take within 90 days, they'll pay you a loyalty bonus just for logging in and checking a couple of times per month. By signing up at whitecodeinvestor.com/global, you'll get an extra $50 just for being a member of the WCI community. All right, our show's come to an end. Keep your head up, shoulders back. You've got this. We're here to help. We'll see you next time on the Milestones to Millionaire podcast.
The hosts of the White Coat Investor podcast are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is free entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.